Hi everyone and welcome back to another Borkano game video. Today's video is dedicated to team optimization character combo. So let's go ahead and jump right into this. We're going to go into quests and we're going to go ahead and go into Grotto. And within Grotto, we're going to go do the EXP quest and go to the Turtle Tyrant. Now this dude has a lot of physical defense, and I wanted to take a note of what happens where we pretty much go against a physical oriented team, but we don't really optimize our team in a way where it's able to tackle physical defenses, right? We're gonna bring Makoto because pretty much everyone has this character, or most people have this character, and she's really good at defense shreds. And we're gonna bring only or mostly just physical attackers. So we're gonna bring Kaori and we're gonna bring someone like Eriko. These are characters that usually appear, you know, they're very physical oriented. Oops, I messed up, but let's go ahead and show what happens where you're not supposed to use Kaori. Kaori's sitting here in the front. She might be able to last long, but that's just because of the fact that we're over leveled for this situation. She will get pretty much burst down by the Turtle Tyrant, but Kaori is not supposed to be a tank. You can see how Peko and Kaori just don't work well together. This is one of those things where character combos such as this is really not meant to be like done, which broke my heart because Kaori is my waifu. But watch what happens. Like, she is probably going to be taken down. Yukari's heals might be able to like keep her alive, but for the most part, I kind of doubt it, yeah. And some things where it's like, hey, like this character isn't supposed to tank. So let's go ahead and go back. And this is the reason why you have to run someone like Miyako or Kuka. I don't recommend running Kuka. We'll talk about that more later. Let's go ahead and put Miyako in here. And let's go ahead and do this properly, right? Because that's what we're supposed to do. You can see right there, like that's one of the mistakes that you should avoid. All right, let's go ahead and jump right into this. And we're going to face the Turtle Tyrant because this is what we were supposed to do. And watch how pretty much like we have a very optimized physical team. We have our positions right where Yukari's sitting in the back, but look at how long it's taking us to, you know, take the Turtle Tyrant down. And granted, we are 20 levels ahead of this actual Turtle Tyrant. So look at that. Look at the damage we're dealing. It took us roughly 30 seconds to deal with this dude. It's technically quite some time considering how strong we are as a team, right? And feel free to go into Grotto and retreat. Note that I'm not losing any stamina. My attempts remain at 1. So long as you continue to keep retrying, you keep failing, you won't have any issues. But let's go ahead and take out these two, and we're gonna bring in pretty much the generic characters, Yui and Kaoru. I highly recommend raising Kaoru at least to 2-star if you don't have a magical DPS whatsoever in any of your rerolls. All right, she is a very important unit that will carry you through a long story. She'll carry you even through PvP at 2 stars just because she is a magical DPS. Now, note that it's not recommended to mix physical and magical teams in PvP. You should be focused, but in the early stages, it's fine because, you know, Kaoru might be your only character that you have as a magical DPS or only DPS that's quite leveled. And Kaoru kind of fits in any situation because she can also magically like defense debuff, right? So you can see right here, look at how fast we took down that turtle. That turtle went down in like 10 seconds compared to the previous team that, you know, just had physical optimization. And that's where I want us to focus our eyes on, the sense that it's better to bring characters for a situation. And this is why raising like the original like 4 that you get, Yui, Kaoru, Peko, and Kokoro, are going to be very important because they are always going to be very good in any content because they are pretty much the perfect units to tackle anything regarding story or anything PvE wise. So let's go ahead and go into quest again, go into main quest, and we're gonna go into 8-14 because I want to show some teams that will pretty much show like how you're supposed to run a tank comp. So let's go ahead and run Miyako and where is it? Kuka. Now these two work really well together, and watch what happens. We're gonna see how they work first and how fast that they go down. Note that they are tanks that don't deal any damage whatsoever. Whenever a character gets like that little target symbol on them, that means that they have taunted the enemy units. Now note here that Miyako is pretty much staying alive longer even though she's in a more frontal position, but look at how well they balance each other. That's because Kuka is a magical tank and Miyako is a physical tank, all right? And this is one of the things that I want us to look at when creating character synergies, where there are some moments where characters will work well together depending on how well their stats and abilities are paired, right? So let's go ahead and look at that team. And of course we failed because it's 2 tanks, right? Not to mention it's 8-14. If you click and hold, Miyako's abilities is to make herself invincible and also recover her own HP, and she can recover her own HP on her Union Burst. But if you take a look at Kuka's skills, she's actually quite the opposite of Miyako, where she creates magical barriers, she taunts. So since Miyako cannot taunt, you can have Kuka fill in that role, and then she can also increase her own magical defense, and then she even grants herself more magical defense. You can see right here she has 157 magical defense, and then if you look at Miyako, I believe she has like 170, which is really high, but look at her magical defense, it's only at 96, right? And this is where you want to pair proper characters together so it can create synergies where it's like, hey, you know, these are the teams that you want to start looking into, because it's not about tanks dealing damage, about them surviving and your team lasting longer. Now note what happens here with Miyako and Peko. We're going to be able to take down this first enemy, but look at how it's not really balanced the way they're receiving damage. Miyako is going to die first, which is unfortunate because, you know, Miyako is very like good, she can last quite some time, but it's not the perfect pairing, right? And this is where character combos matter, because in story stages you want it so that you can last longer and your units stay alive longer. Just because we last longer in time doesn't mean anything, because you can't 3-star a stage if your characters are not all alive. You won't be able to, you know, use your skip tickets and whatever. Peko is fantastic, right? Peko is absolutely one of my favorite like free-to-play tanks ever in any gachas that I've played. She's really well built as a character, overall character in the anime, and her overall design, not to mention her VA is amazing. Waifu, definitely top tier. But it's one of those things where it's pretty obvious that Kuka and Miyako are the tanks that you want to run. Now, seeing with this team, you can pretty much run anything, and I always advise these would probably be like an optimal all-around team. Like, okay, let's add the final piece of the puzzle. Agree? The thing is this is going to be the perfect setup where you can pretty much run any team in this situation, just because of the fact that you have a taunter. Because you have someone like taunting, like, you know, Miyako right here, you can run Karu in the back to deal magical DPS, and then you can run someone like, for example, Makoto to deal with anything in the middle. But it doesn't really matter, because so long as you have someone who is able to taunt, the enemies who are trying to hit people in the middle or in the back will pretty much be attracted to Kuka. Watch how, like, you know, Makoto's being hit, now Kuka has a target on her, and now Makoto's not taking as much damage. Of course she's still going to take damage because of that cloud right here. He does AoE damage overall. Karu won't take as much damage, Yukari won't take as much damage, and this is what's known as a more balanced team. But this is a team that doesn't work in PvP, because you don't want balance in PvP. It's interesting how story PvE pretty much makes you build the incorrect team for PvP, if that makes any sense whatsoever. The teams that we build here in story do not work that well in PvP, and that's only because in PvP you should be optimizing your damage. You should be running one particular damage type so you can pretty much increase that damage type against the enemy. Not to mention in PvP you should be countering your enemy. That way you take advantage of the fact that they're weak to magical or weak to physical, etc, etc. All right, let's go ahead, and we're not going to really complete this. You can see right here, it's like pretty much easy work, and there's not really any issues because Kuka can pretty much keep tanking or taunting, and that will help Makoto stay alive. And it gets to a point where your hand's free, right? And that's what you really want from your team. And also, this is the reason why Makoto really isn't recommended for story. It's just because of the fact that, you know, you can't take advantage of her physical debuff. Note that there was, like earlier, there's a little shield that will pop up. That just means that the enemy is physically debuffed. But by the time that appears, that enemy is dead. While Makoto is very good, she's just not in a situation to excel, right? She's still going to be much better than your average, like, physical DPS. Just note that Suzuna will outclass her as an overall DPS in PvE, right? Let's go ahead and look for a team. This one looks sort of doable. All right, with this team, I have Ayo, who's a magical attacker, but she's also like a weird debuffer that can make your enemies turn against each other. So we're gonna run this team. And note, while it's not perfect because I'm running both a physical and magical, I'm reading this team because of the fact they have Reno. If we can time Ayo's Union Burst properly, you can't use Union Burst against Union Burst. This used to be a thing where Ayo is so broken, where she can make the enemy team Union Burst against themselves. They nerfed that because that was too broken. But this is what's sort of known as a balanced team. You don't really want to run something like this, but it's just to show an example of this is the team that I do run. Now I run this because Maho has blinds, Io can do magical DPS, and Tamaki is good at pretty much killing people like Maho or anyone in the backline, right? So Tamaki is like, if you can get her to 5-star as soon as possible, like I said in the shard priority, it's really, really important, I think. And then Nozomi with her heals. Now, what's interesting though is most people like to run what's known as a more shell or tank-like setup. This is one of the few teams that I've seen that's actually more attack oriented in Colo, and this is one of the teams that you want to pretty much face. When they have a bunch of attackers on their team, you want to fight these because this is actually better than facing something where double tank, where it's like Kuka and Miyako, like we showed earlier, they can last forever. These are the teams where it's like, if they run too many DPS, you can probably get through them. And that's one of my warnings. If bringing a team into your defense team, run something similar to this where you're running double tanks, run a healer in the back. Maho is pretty much the best when it comes to adding blinds, so really deadly in that faction. But yeah, that is pretty much what I wanted to show, where there are certain characters that pair well together, and you're looking at teams where it's like, hey, you know, this, like for example, we showed early, Kaori does not pair well as a tank, but Kaori pairs well with Makoto because she can take advantage of that physical debuff. And just note, like, Mitsuki is a really great AoE defense debuffer, and she goes really well with Reno. We'll talk about Reno Cannon in a future video where Tomias covers it even more in depth. But don't run stuff like this, don't run stuff like this, because Kuka's really terrible at physical defense, but Miyako can pretty much mitigate that with her high physical defense, not to mention she goes in front of Kuka. So at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say here with this video is look at your characters and read up on their skills, alright? Don't try running Monica and Kokoro on the same team. Do not do that, because if you do that, they pretty much do the same thing. What I mean by that is Kokoro provides physical and, you know, speed buffs, right, on her skills. I think it's speed boost, right? Yeah, attack speed plus physical attack. And then you look at Monica, she does the exact same thing, where speed buffs do not stack, right? They don't stack, but at the same time, physical attack and magical attacks do. Debuffs do stack, but it's one of those things where you don't want to run characters that do pretty much the same thing, okay? And that's why you don't want to run Yukari and Yui for situations during early story, because that's too many heals and not enough DPS. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. I wanted to make it so that you can visually see how characters work during certain situations. Samuel Sama has contacted me. I hope you guys have a great day. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Thank you so much for watching this video. Once we hit 10K, we'll do another giveaway, and I will see you in the next one.